Howdy YouTube, I'm Jeremy Wright. Welcome to another Tank Talk episode. This is a 3.5 gallon Nano. It's not really a cube, it's just a small rimless tank with a little Aquarium light on it. It's always crooked. I'm always reaching up here and grabbing this thing and like pushing this corner down, and it doesn't ever stay that way. See that? Yeah, that just bothers me. So maybe like while I'm doing this, I could give it a twist, see if that helps anything. I don't know. Let's talk about the tank. So I did some recent changes here. I pulled sorry, I had to scratch my nose. I had to pull some female Endlers out of this tank because I can tell that they're infected with like an internal parasite, and I'm going to assume it's like the wormies, and I'm also going to assume that they got there via ram's horn snails as a vector of the parasite. Now let's talk about that. Ram's horn snails. There's a nearite down the bottom. There's a Malaysian trumpet snail. There are also ram's horns on the glass up here. And they have done really well in this tank because I was growing fry and feeding a lot. So I'm going to assume that all of these ram's horns have wormies as well, even though they look kind of healthy. And yeah, if we look through here, there's a bunch of them, but they're part of why this tank doesn't really have any algae. And there's different stuff, little Anubias plants, crypts. I just thinned the crypts. Like there was a big one in this area, and you couldn't really see anything behind it, so I pulled some of that stuff. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. And so yeah, there was big crypt in that area, and I removed it. I left some of its little fingerlings, baby crypts in that area, and hopefully they'll thicken up a bit. I actually tried to take some of the stargrass, that stuff, and move it over here, and it just kept floating free. This particular substrate's kind of hard to plant small stuff in. Sand anchors much better than this. I even thought about putting some dark sand over it, but I didn't. Nearite is getting shell clean. I don't ever see this nearite crawling out or laying eggs, so that might be something. Actually, check this out. Let's look at the back of this nearite snail. I don't think that's a healthy looking back of a snail shell. So let's look at some of the other snails in here and see if they show signs of maybe calcium depletion or mineral depletion. I may need to add a little bit of calcium carbonate to this tank and do a calcium test. Usually you can kind of look at the snails or other invertebrates and they look pretty good actually. So that may be something. Let's check this one out. Is that a good looking snail shell? I can't tell. Let's try to get it in focus. I think it's pretty good looking. Look at the, okay, this is probably snail damage. I'm looking at the crypt leaf. See the holes? I'm thinking that's probably snail damage, not a mineral deficiency. Things seem to be growing pretty well. I just removed the floaters that were on the top of this tank, and they're just not needed. There are plenty of plants growing in here and growing from it. Now this little guy, that might be a mulberry, and it's been growing since, I don't know, in the water since it was about this long. It's only done this much growth in a few months, so probably a failed experiment. The tiny begonias have not done too great in this tank. They have had like a we don't like having our feet wet, but I've grown that same exact begonia, like that's a clone of begonias that I've been growing in aquariums for a long time. This is a Mexican petunia growing up, and it has flowered. These flower in aquariums really well. Syngonium over here in this area. What else is in there? I mentioned the stargrass, the crypts. There's a little bit of Ludwigia that's been growing in here for, I'm going to say a year, but I've harvested from it several times. And then the little Anubias. I don't know if that's Nana Petite. I think it's just regular Nana Petite, but it might be something slightly different. I'm not a true knowledgeable person about the little Anubias varieties. That's like a whole nother world you can get lost in, and I've never gone down that rabbit hole. Maybe I will one day. For now, things are looking okay. Actually, check out this root. That root there is from that vine, and it hasn't. And I think that's so I was saying, mulberry. It's just now getting to the point where it's about to get down into the substrate. So maybe that will be able to pick up some additional minerals and help this guy out. Now, again, the reason I'm talking about that is, see that pale, the really, really pale growth on top of that? I'm going to do a mineral test on this little tank and just check the water. I gave it a water change. It wasn't really intentional water change. And again, I know that this tank is infected. Remember me telling you about the female Endlers that I pulled that seemed to have the skinnies? And also knowledge that ram's horn snails can be a vector of communicating wormy parasites to fish. And I don't think it's the nearite. I don't think it's the Malaysian trumpet snails. I think it's the ram's horns. And from that, I may have to treat this tank, but I don't really want to because it's otherwise pretty healthy, and I don't know what else is going to be harmed in here. Little cardinals are doing pretty well. They've been hanging out in here for quite a while. I can't remember how many months or even where I got them. Somebody gave those to Tuan gave those to me, I think. So they've been in here for 3 months, something like that. Hopefully they're not infected, but no sign yet of them doing badly. I guess it's time to feed some fishies. So, yeah, this is the little Nano. It came from a friend who originally did the hardscape and the setup, which was where the Endlers came from, and everything that's below the water. I say that. Maybe everything except the stargrass, but just did a rearrangement. And like I said, cleared the floaters, and we're gonna see how this tank does now that it's getting access to more light. And I'll do a nutrient test now. Catch you later.